to start earlier. The full time, you know.
That's a good point. We are now middle of January. We hire an interim. And that is on the agenda for the preceding pages, and we have a very good proposal or candidate. Would the board want to consider posting in, say, a couple of weeks, or hire the interim and then with input from him or guidance, help?
At this point, with our financial situation, I really don't think we can commit to hiring someone full-time as town administrator in this fiscal year. I don't see how we can do that, you know, with good conscience when we're telling people, you know, you can't fill positions and you can't hire. You know, I believe that we need to fill this position, but I think the best way to do it is as an interim until the end of this fiscal year, so we can budget in 15 for what it needs to be.
Just trying to anticipate or guesstimate the time it will take to post it, go through all the things that we have to do, receive the applications, or perhaps in the meantime create, just what we need, another committee or subcommittee, or and perhaps working with an interim town administrator, because moving down the road, try to time it so by the time May gets here, we fund it and we can have someone ready to plug into the position. And maybe we could put this decision, the posting off to our next meeting, and go back and look at the process that we followed when we hired that guy, and how long it took, the length of time it took. Jeff?
Let me just expound for a moment on the way the process typically works. It's a little different for a town administrator than a coordinator, because you're granting a little more authority to that position. With or without the pay, it's about the authority. And the process I've just been through in Sterling, or the process that the interim candidate you're going to look at is helping the town of Northfield conduct. It's a very standard process. The board creates a committee, a standing committee, not of the board, of citizens of the town, interested parties, appropriate HR experts, and a member of the board, but a committee to take in and review all applicants, and to interview all applicants once or twice or as many times are necessary, reviewing and doing background checks on all those applicants, and then recommending to the Board of Selectmen 3 or 2 or at most 4 or 5 candidates, handing that pool of certified candidates to the board for your review, inspection, interview, and ultimate selection. So it's a 2-step process, and it involves getting the community and experts involved in that first screening process away from here and away from the board. So those can be public meetings, but typically those are private meetings, because people that want to toss the hat in the ring want it to be private until they're selected in that final round when it becomes public. That's typically the way the process works. And that could take 4 months to 5 months to 6 months, depending on how quickly you move through.
And it's just my thought, my concern on the issue, and not a concern of whether we find one or anything, but to have it done in a timely manner so that we hit the mark at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we don't take money out of whatever it is, put $80,000, $90,000 on the table, and $100,000, nice round money, but you spend 25 of that on an interim because we waited too long. We get, by the time we hire someone, yeah, we're gonna pay you 100,000, but oh, by the way, we can only pay you 75 for the rest of this year because it's, August or.
Don't forget that whoever you select, if they are already a qualified professional, they're going to have a severance clause. There will be a delay from the time you publicly vote to select them until such time as they can come to work here, unless they're currently unemployed. 30 days, at a minimum 60 days is very standard. So even when you vote and shake hands and have a signed contract, it's still another 30, 45, 60 days until they report, meaning it's a long time frame.
Which is my thought.
I think if we post in February, we would cover our bases.
All right, a week or two. Like I said, we have something coming up that will enlighten, I think, us more, and probably give us good assistance and maybe keep the wheels turning.
I do think, though, that we don't want to linger this too long. I
Right,
mean,
that's.
Yes.
we are way overdue on having this kind of position, and the longer we drag our feet, the longer it's gonna take, and the longer we're gonna continue to struggle and flap in the wind, so.
Which is why I wouldn't post tonight, but
Yeah, and I just don't want us to be sitting
No.
here in
No.
March
No.
saying, well, should we post this now?
yeah,
But, what Jeff Ritter said, having a committee, and forming a committee is going to take time as well. And I think that committee should be formed, and then we post.
Also, the posting can be open as little as 2 weeks, but you may want it open a month. Word takes a while to get out, even if you put it on, the standard websites at Maya and so on, in the Beacon. And, it takes a while for word to filter out.
all right, hopefully we will be able to, we will address this at our next meeting, whatever that may be. But we do have a job description. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an interim town coordinator, administrator, etc. We discussed this. We instructed Jeff to look and put feelers out there. He said he knew people, or at least was aware and had contacts. We did get an individual, very, very qualified. I almost wish we could hire him full-time, but he's retired and just keeps busy. He is helping Northfield accomplish exactly what we are beginning to do now. He is willing to come to town on Wednesday after 4:30 to meet with any member of the board, just as a informal meet and greet. I spoke with him on the telephone over the weekend, and after, I will be sending an email for a proposed number or guesstimate of the number of selectmen who would like to, who can vacate on Wednesday. He estimates about 4:30. Sit down with, a couple of selectmen at a time or one at a time. To talk with him. His experience speaks volumes, that he certainly is a qualified individual that we could, if he so chooses, to appoint him as an interim coordinator and help us as he's doing in his present capacity. So I guess one, is there any, other than myself, as far as Wednesday, selectmen who could possibly make that?
I can do that.
And I can be there.
All right,
I couldn't be there till
It's-
5:45.
okay. I will send an email and tell them that most likely the board would meet. I suppose Wednesday morning, whoever, we have an election tomorrow, so go out and vote. There will be a new member of the board, whoever that is, doesn't matter, but I would also probably contact them and invite them, see if they can could make that time. Because whoever that is, they got to jump on board, and we're busy. But they will be a member of the board, and there are some things that they're entitled to do, and that would certainly be one of them. Yes.
Well, you've already mentioned his qualifications, but just someone, it's like almost unbelievable to find someone with such a well-rounded, I mean, he's been everything from chairman of Springfield's school committee to the mayor of Springfield to running smaller towns and serving various smaller towns, so he kind of has such a good mix of like dealing with, I'm sure, communities that have conflict or have dealt with difficult times, so.
Oh,
I'm sure that
it's
he'll-
amazing.
yeah.
I don't know how
He was a
we're so
professor.
lucky for someone to fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
I would say maybe he doesn't read newspapers or anything and know anything about Templeton.
Well, nobody tell him.
No, I spoke with him, and he keeps up on things, on governmental things and stuff like that. He's kind of a junkie nut like myself, so. But he is, like you said, his experience is just amazing there. And he communicated to me that he retired, and then he decided he likes to keep busy. So,
Okay, I'm concerned with that we're calling this an interim town coordinator versus administrator. Part of the problems that we're having is because this board can't do day-to-day supervision. So while this is an interim person, we would not have to grant them the full responsibility or authority that we would grant a full-time administrator. But I do think we need to make this interim person an administrator so that we can give them some authority and responsibility. If we call them a coordinator, then we're bound by the bylaw that, no, you have no authority. So I have a real problem with this being an interim town coordinator.
my thought was, at a meet and greet, ask him point blank, what does he, does he have a preference on the things he would do? Is he willing to step in to be a full-fledged, have the duties and the responsibilities of, because he certainly has handled it and been there.
Right.
But as far as, just talking with him, asking what he's, what he wants, what he perceives his duties to be as an interim, and how has he handled it in Northfield? Has he acted as, because now that we have a job description voted, it can be an interim, I would think, an interim administrator versus a coordinator. That's how I worded it, because we hadn't really officially adopted a job description. But this individual certainly has, the qualifications
Yeah, absolutely.
to step in. So I think if we have, talked with him, and then we can decide. He is committed for a couple days a week in his present position. they're like, he said they were about like in the middle, midway through it. He doesn't foresee it being, much longer. So if he was to come in here like next week, the following week, it'd be a couple days a week that he would have. But when Northfield is complete, then if we wanted, he would be available a couple more days a week. And that's what he spoke to me, unofficially just talking, that's how he sees it, and his schedule and availability. He was very honest up front. But again, that would be, talk with him, see what, how he's done it here, how he sees it, and, the guidance and help that we could get from this person is just amazing. I mean, just by his experience and the various titles that he's done, from, chairman of a school committee to administrator, town manager, a mayor of a large city, and now acting as an interim administrator and guiding a board of selectmen and a town through the process. Of hiring a full-time administrator. I mean, there's just experience here that questions and assistance we could get. It's just, I don't know how we lucked out this way again. So I will email him and say that Wednesday is good. And he estimates, his drive, he gets out at 4, and he estimates it would be like a 30-minute drive from there to here. How long he wishes to just talk to no more than a couple of us at a time. And he did say, like, in an ad hoc, unofficial capacity, just talk and go over this with him and any questions we may have as a board. So, all right.
I just have one comment,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, which is obviously, those sessions are public sessions, no deliberation, no decision-making. If you get to a decision, you'd bring it to a public board meeting and vote it here.
Right.
Obviously, I just don't want people taking off on anything untoward. It's just a meet and greet, that's all it is. No deliberation will occur and no decisions will be made.
He's just meeting, we'd get to talk to him, see him, he can see where he would work. And I've spoken to him, and he told me what his hours and stuff. He can speak to other board members, and certain things like he just brought up, an interim administrator, and the process, how he sees it. And then if, we could then schedule a night to bring him here and discuss the things that need to be discussed. But this is not a vote or a hiring thing or anything, it's just an informal, he's an exceptional candidate. And he contacted the town of Templeton, and it's just something I think we should just do.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
out of consideration, could we move up the cable licensing and fees to discuss it next?
We can. If any members of the board have any objections to that? If they're not, they're subject not listed by time, so we can just juggle them around if we wish.
So with this up front,
Oh, yeah, that's the
I
hot
gotta do a
seat.
little housekeeping here.
So, you're gonna critique us, huh?
No, we had our
Yeah,
mics
we need
taped
more
down.
gaffer tape. Would you guys put that in the budget of old gaffer tape for us?
Yeah, $100,000 worth of gaffing tape. Whole truckload.
The semi-tractor load.
One of those pallet trucks up there. How are you this evening?
You got it. Well. All right, the cable commission thing is on the agenda for a couple of reasons, but I was at a school committee meeting, and I was sitting there listening to the school committee do their thing, and all of a sudden I heard my name, and it was Gary McEwen, who works for the Narragansett Regional High School, National School District. And he showed me the recording equipment and stuff, and basically gave me a little sales pitch and informed me of what he had proposed and what he wanted to do. And he asked to be on the board's agenda at our next meeting. And I did at our last meeting. I was going to put it on the agenda. Then I received an email through the selectman's office that Mr. McEwen was requesting that he not be put on the agenda until after the special election, which is tomorrow, to elect a fifth member of the Board of Selectmen. I canceled that. He doesn't want to be on the agenda. He's not on the agenda. But I thought we would get the ball rolling and discuss, this premise. I will read a letter that he sent me, along with some information from back in 2012 and some considerations, and he just points out some things.
May I make a comment before
Yes.
you read that letter? I would just like to state that I think that Mr. McEwen is misrepresenting both my intentions and the cable committee's intentions in that letter. And I don't want people to feel that I'm guilty by any association.
Oh, I'm just, this is addressed to Jeffrey Bennett, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And again, this was a conversation that I had with Mr. McEwen when I attended a school committee meeting. And he basically was just, trying to give me a sales pitch of what he would like to do. And apparently he has tried to make this happen in the past. So, dear Jeff, I am writing you because I want to, in the near future, ask to be placed on the agenda for a Board of Selectmen's meeting. The topic to be discussed is to ask for financial support from the educational portion of the Public Education Grant Access Comcast subscribers franchise fees, which is, you want to speak, explain what that is? So I don't-
It's a little complicated, but the cable TV access station is funded through franchise fees that Comcast charges at the bottom of its cable bill. So if you read it closely, at the bottom you'll see something called a franchise fee. And when you negotiate a contract with the cable company, you can take up to 5% of the TV revenues in the town to fund the cable access channel and maintain it. We elected back in 2005 when we negotiated this contract to take 2% based on a survey that we did in the town that people, I think over 60% of people surveyed, and we received over 1,100 responses, said that they would pay $1. And right now, I think the average franchise fee is about $1 to $1.11, sometimes $1.20. So we kept it in that mix. It's hard to judge because they also roll home shopping and local advertising into that money. So you kind of gotta pick a number and roll the dice.
So that, the way this, you obtain this fund is similar to what the federal government did, and if you look on your cell phone bill or your telephone bill, there's a little fee thing in there that pays for telephone access and internet access in rural outreach communities where generally high-speed internet does not go. Everybody, you pay a little, there's a little charge on your phone bill, and similarly, that's where that goes. So to continue on this letter, I had my last conversations with Kevin Breen and Steve Castle from the Templeton Cable Advisory Committee for the past 7 years when I agreed to teach the new broadcasting class in the Kiever at NRHS. It has been difficult and frustrating to obtain available funds from the school district, from grants, and currently the franchise fees from the Templeton Cable Committee. I no longer have faith or confidence with Steve or Kevin. I have directed Steve to send future emails to the superintendent. I informed Steve that as a result of our lack of progress, I will ask to be placed on the Board of Selectmen agenda. After second thoughts, I do not want to cause any problems with the board, so I decided to contact you unofficial off the record. We did receive approximately $12,000 7 years ago from this particular committee as a result of some extreme circumstances. We just located this video equipment last year. I did attach in this package a paper trail of correspondence that explains what happened. Also in this package is information that I thought might help explain our needs and future plans. I need some advice and direction to accomplish what I started in 2005. I have 1 more year to retirement, so I am desperate. I thought we had the ball rolling again for a small robotics studio that I proposed back in March 2012. As a result of our superintendent asking our broadcasting class to videotape school committee meetings and new elementary school building project committee meetings, we have had some positive discussion in regard to funding and finances. For some reason, the Templeton Cable Advisory Committee stopped taping any activity that involved the school district. We have not received any PEG access support from Templeton franchise fees since 2005. Now that the school is responsible for the taping of school-related events, we should be part of the PEG educational support. I attended a recent Templeton Cable Advisory Committee and made a proposal. I asked for $50,000 from their fees. They thought it was excessive. I then learned that the town is setting on over $100,000 of collected franchise fees over the past 7 years in the town's account. I recommended Access AV out of Concord, New Hampshire. Steve and Kevin stated that they are considering Access AV for a new robotic TV studio in the new town hall. That was their excuse for the money they have been setting on. I later found out the town hall is a good 2 years away. I don't know where that excuse me, came from. So that is one potential source of money. The second source could be with the cable license renewal with the town of Phillipston. I found out that Phillipston's license with Comcast expires November 2013. I met with the town's administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen. She did not know where the 2003 license was. Phillipston does not and never had a cable advisory committee. Comcast never helped them out with video equipment. Comcast never provided a franchise fee for PEG access support. Comcast did have a license fee in the 2003 agreement, but no PEG access support. Comcast should have made 2 payments excuse me, of $5,000, but only made 1. In the meantime, I have met with Phillipston Selectmen to begin ACAC. I have been doing a crash course on learning the practical guide of the Massachusetts license renewal process. If I have not totally confused you, this is what I'm proposing. $50,000 from Templeton's franchise fees. This money to purchase equipment and install a robotic studio for both the school district and the town of Templeton. A robotic studio in the high school's Kiva and a robotic cameras and audio in the shared auditorium. Everyone seems to be excited about this. Phillipston Board of Selectmen, your town treasurer, subscribers, residents of both towns, and school district. That's another thing I've been asking Comcast and Dan for record of payments made and expenditures made, equipment and stipends from the past 7 years, and have not received anything. I hope that $50,000 will do all of this. It will not cost taxpayers anything. All capital comes out of the franchise fees. Excuse me. According to the Massachusetts Cable Television Division of the Department of Telecommunication and Energy, the Board of Selectmen is designated as the issuing authority and irresponsible for cable license. Must have meant responsible for the cable license. The issuing authorities act in compliance with federal and state law to obtain a license that best serves the needs of the community. In my opinion, Your cable advisory committee has not been in compliance regard to the educational portion of PEG access support. If there is anything you could do to improve the situation, I and the broadcasting classes would greatly appreciate it. Glad to have had the opportunity to talk with you at school committee meeting. Harry McEwen. Apparently, they have, the agreement of Comcast, or Phillipston, when they did it, somebody missed it, dropped the ball. Maybe it's a thing that if you don't ask, they don't volunteer it. But they did not, Phillipston has not collected franchise fees the way Templeton has. Apparently they are in the process of fixing that, with negotiating the second time with Comcast. And that's what I get out of reading some of this information that I got. And basically what Gary suggested in the conversation face-to-face with him was that he wanted to try to have the board vote and convince, or have the town of Templeton take $50,000 out of their franchise fee and pay or give to the school district so they could upgrade their audiovisual equipment. It's like a small-scale television studio, which would benefit the students and the school and the broadcasting out of the Kiva, and put new, or provide new, pay for new equipment for town meeting to, I took from it to record town meetings. My first thought was, this is going to be another one of those dividing issues. And second, it would be Templeton supplying the money to benefit the school district in one sense, with half of the district not providing any of their funding. Wherever side of the fence you fall on, whatever the opinion is, again, this is just one of those issues. You can't run, you can't hide from it. It's basically a school educational funding issue, and it's not unique to Templeton, and it's an ongoing problem in many sides of school funding. It's one of those things.
May I speak to this after?
Yes, you
Yeah.
can, yes.
Personally, I think that's a bit of a mischaracterization. This isn't the school district asking, I mean, I'm not in favor of this anyway, let me just preface by saying that. But also, this isn't the school district asking for money. He says right in the letter, it has been difficult and frustrating to obtain available funds from the school district. The school district isn't asking for this. This is one teacher on his own without authority from anyone asking for this. This is not signed by anyone from the, so I think it's a little misleading to say the school district is asking for money. The school
And I
district
can
isn't.
speak to that. First of all, I want to make it known that the cable committee is not against funding or buying some equipment for the school to help them with their video production program. That's always been our intent since this contract, the present contract was negotiated in Templeton. For the first time, we got a cable access TV station and the funding for it. We want a vibrant program there, and we want it to feed into Templeton Community Television, TCTV. And we purchased $12,000 worth of equipment for the school, gifted it to the school for that purpose. It's a long story. I have a good idea of what happened there. I know there was a conflict, and the equipment was apparently squirreled away for years. While I went to the school and taped school committee meetings and many other functions there, sometimes to the chagrin of other people on the cable committee who felt that we bought that equipment for the school. So my feeling was, well, they're just not ready for the video production program. Now, per Mr. McEwen's direction, we've been trying to work through the superintendent's office. And since last summer, we sent Ruth Miller a survey asking, what would you use this equipment for? If you got robotic equipment in the Kiva, what's its educational purpose? What's the curricula? We want to know this. How many meetings are going to take place there? Who's going to man the equipment? What about the auditorium? Maybe that's an option, to put equipment there. And then we could broadcast live town meetings. Maybe we'll look at that as well. That survey hasn't come back to us yet. And I think Dr. Miller had some misunderstandings about my intent and the cable committee's intent as well, and been trying to get meetings with her. That hasn't happened. We received an email last week about this where, I won't say what she said, but I just received an email a few minutes ago that we looked at, that because I sent her the packet that you all received, I believe, that outlines our plan for this, and she said she was sorry that she misunderstood our intentions and wants to meet on this. So, like Ken said, I think this is one individual who may or may not be communicating with the superintendent's office on this. We're working to the superintendent's office on this, and we've determined that that's the most productive way to go. As for other things that were addressed in the letter that I don't think are exactly true, I don't want to nitpick at all, but something about not meeting the educational requirements. You know, the school has 5 hours of broadcasting time 4 days a week. And for much of that time, that was used for, you know, and I may be wrong on this, but a 5-minute news update that the students do, which is fine, and you know, they use the other time to run their notices and slides. And last year, they had difficulty broadcasting. We got them a modulator to broadcast, and for whatever reason that was turned off, and that station was dark in the mornings for how long? Months, right?
Yes.
And we sent numerous emails and correspondence to the school to say, what are you going to do with this? You know, we're keeping the station dark in the morning for you. Are you going to do it? And apparently it was turned off. So we feel like we're meeting any educational requirement to do this. As far as equipment in the Kiva goes, we're not convinced that it's needed. And we feel that the money might be best used elsewhere. But that's what the survey that we sent to school is for. The survey basically says, convince us that this is worth it. The Kiva already has equipment in it. They've got cameras that are set up. We went and saw them, and frankly, they have a nicer setup than we do, which I don't resent at all, and I can understand why they may want an upgrade. We also question whether they need robotic cameras there. So robotic cameras would be like these cameras would pan, zoom, and tilt, and someone in the back room would be running it with a joystick or whatnot. One of our former members, our former chairman, Kevin Breen, who's very knowledgeable about this and works full-time at the Gardner Station, questioned somebody at Mount Wachusett Community College who runs the video program, and they were both in agreement that high school students don't need to be on robotic cameras. Now, maybe the way digital technology is moving, that may become the reality, but I think it's a valid point to say, let's teach the kids on a camcorder, on a tripod, how to pan, how to zoom, how to frame correctly. And maybe the robotic cameras are better used in the auditorium for town meetings and other functions that the students can take part in. So it's not, as I think this individual has characterized it in numerous correspondences with other people, including vendors, that the cable committee is against this. We want more information. And hopefully now we can get that from the superintendent.
Yes.
And I almost think, well, I do think that it's also inappropriate as well for the teacher who does present it in kind of a way that this is something that the school needs and the school wants and whatnot, when as you could tell from your lack of receiving a response from Dr. Miller, that Mrs. Miller, that this isn't something that at least presently the school committee has thought up and has kind of tried to push forward. As well, like I said, it's just kind of a teacher acting without the authority of anyone to really kind of try to push this forward.
And I'd be happy to go through, did you receive the materials we sent? I'd be happy to go through what we've been working on the past few months as kind of a master plan draft for what we have. Because, I understand Mr. McEwen seeing that we have more than $100,000 in our account and saying, why can't $50,000 be used in the Kiva? Well, okay, well, let's look at it all, and, right now we have $126,749. And I think it's a really good thing that some department in town actually has money.
Careful. It might come for a loan.
But you know what, per the contract, you can't spend it on
You can't
anything
take
but the
it.
cable TV station. So, the cable committee the past few months has been trying to figure out, okay, now that we have all this money, what can we do with it, right? And it's based on, right now we're receiving about $40,000 a year. We're gonna get a check in February for about $20,000, so it's gonna go up to nearly $150,000. It's based on the 2% franchise fee, as I said. And I think Mr. McEwen also misunderstands that we haven't been sitting on $130,000 for 10 years. It's grown very gradually. If you look at the financials that I put in here as well, this is every transaction that the cable committee has completed since the original tech grant check was written. And, it took us a while to get up to 50,000 or so, and we've always maintained that you should have at least 30,000 in that account for a rainy day fund. Because we could wake up tomorrow and need a new rack of equipment at the station in order to broadcast. And that would cost 30 to 50,000 right there. So the last couple of years it's ballooned, mainly because we paid off the technology quote-unquote grant that Comcast gave. It's not a grant, it's a loan. We got it for no interest because we negotiated hard with them. And we had to pay that $10,000 a year. So they make 2 payments a year for the franchise fee, and each one of those payments, they subtracted $5,000 from. So we weren't getting $40,000 a year early on. We were getting more like $15,000 and minus, 10,000, and then up to 20 and 10,000. So what would we like to do with this money? Well, we've always want to put money aside for the town office's relocation. We've seen plans for as far back as Templeton Center School, and hoping to do that. And it wasn't long ago, even say a couple years ago, when we maybe had 60, 70,000 in the account, and we were looking at Baldwinville Road, and we saw the plans for that and realized that once we were done with that, we were gonna be broke. So, that could cost 40 to 60,000 for equipment, and that's being, that's not being super robotic, I don't think, to do that. And it would cost probably 20,000 just to get a live feed fiber line. So if it's East Templeton School, say, we already paid 20,000 for a live broadcasting line to the station in Baldwinville. Their charge is 20,000 more. So, and keep in mind, these are ballpark figures right now. We haven't really quoted this out. So that could be, I think, 60 to 80,000, and our plan is maintain that in reserve, because I don't know if Will Spring's going to jump up next month or next year and say, East Templeton's ready, right?
I don't know.
And I think when you have a situation like that, it's not something that's if it's 2 years out, we may need to buy that equipment 1 year out and get it ready to put in there, especially if it's a situation where walls are knocked down and you have to wire. You want to know what you're wiring for, and you want to know what the equipment is. So I think the cable committee would prefer to have at least 60 to 80,000 in the account and be ready for that situation. Although I understand Mr. McEwen's point about, yes, it could be 2 years out, so why don't you spend the money now? I'm not going to spend money we don't have either. We have our station in the lighting department barn that we share with the food pantry. And so once the food pantry moves to the senior center, which I believe it is, right, Mr. Morrison? Not that we want to get rid of them. I mean, they're great neighbors and we love them, but that could be used as a studio. Now, I visited the Athol Studios, AOTV, and the manager said the worst mistake she made was investing a lot in the studio because people don't use it. So we wouldn't put a lot in it, but that building may need some construction upgrades. We need air conditioning in that room because our equipment swelters, and electronics and heat and humidity don't make a good team in the summertime. So I fully expect to lose that rack of equipment at some point. And we would hope to work with the lighting department. That's a good candidate to, if we got an HVAC heat pump, electric heat, we could get rid of the oil, and Mr. Ritter suggested putting solar panels on the roof. And we may be able to get a grant for that.
Let me ask you a question, just, that just popped on. If you, when your neighbors are out of there and the food pantries at the senior center and that building is empty, if you made a studio, and I'm not suggesting you blow $100,000 on a big elaborate studio, but a basic broadcasting facility. What would be the possibility of holding meetings there within the studio? After you do, after you make a studio, create one, is not a room, or would you expand so much that it would just not be feasible?
Well, we're just in a little room right now, and we would probably use the rest of the space for a studio. I mean, if you had to put 30 people in there, I'm not sure.
There would be room.
The fire chief would like that.
Oh, we sent donuts his way. Oh, wait a minute, wrong guy.
But you could always have, you could have your own show if you wanted, and tape it right there. And I
The
know.
Board of Selectmen? Well, me personally, I don't think people are ready for that.
But anyone could do that, and that's I think that's the idea of cable access, is that someone could come in and, this is what happens in Athol, and someone says, I want to do a show. And, sometimes it's fringe element type people, but as long as they're not doing, pornography or anything like that. Well, they've had some interesting.
You've given me some ideas, no?
They're like Julie.
But a
I'm
basic
just
studio could be, a basic studio could be used.
I don't think we'd spend the money on Channel 5 like mobile big cameras with the cameraman actually has a seat on the rig or anything. We'd probably put, maybe a counter and a backdrop and a nice carpet in and spruce the place up the best that we could, and use the camera equipment that we have or get some upgrades for it. So that's a possibility, and that's something that I feel that, would like to set a little bit of money aside for. And the middle school auditorium, and I know people I've met in this room have asked me about, why don't you wire that up and do the meetings. We don't tape the town meetings because they take, 3 or 4 days, 10 hours, and we're not gonna put that on the air in its entirety, but we might do it live. So if the live feed right now goes to the high school equipment room in the library, and if we were to equip, say, the auditorium with some robotic cameras, and get the live feed extended down to the auditorium, then we can do that. And I've even spoken to Mr. Bear, the music teacher there. He would like, you know, a whole PA upgrade. I'm not sure we can tie a PA system into what should be used for cable access, but possibly with the robotics. Or built-in cameras of some sort. You know, that's a possibility if that's warranted. And again, that's something that the school needs to help us assess with the survey. The Kiva, I know he needs an AV mixer because we went there and troubleshot that. Beyond that, you know, I don't know, but I think the cable committee's kind of gut feeling about it is that, you know, maybe the money is better spent elsewhere where there isn't enough equipment, like the auditorium, like a new town office. But we're not ruling it out. And I also know that the proposals or the quotes that Mr. McEwen has gotten have gone from robotics to over the summer. I received an email saying that they might go in a different direction with it and it would cost less, and now it seems to be back to robotic cameras. So that's that, and something I'd also like to consider starting would be a scholarship for a deserving student studying video production or something in the electronic arts, broadcasting, and to facilitate working with us on the cable committee and Templeton Community TV, so, and volunteering for these things and helping to tape some of the meetings at the school. Beyond that, we've got about annual operational costs of about $20,000. As I said, we want to maintain a rainy day fund of $30,000 to $50,000. That's the total planned expenses, and again, these are ballpark figures of about $180,000 to $240,000. We might get close to there in the next couple of years with $80,000 more in equipment, but you know, I think that money still should be used wisely. Whether the Kiva's involved in that, I don't know yet.
The Cable Commission, in my opinion anyway, is just being good stewards of town money, because it does come from residents of the town of Templeton, that they pay, you know, indirectly to, but they pay nonetheless, whether you choose to call that an additional tax or anything. But I mean, it is something that, you know, comes off your cable.
And we've always been glad to share that with the school and help them, you know, when they need it. For instance, like the modulator last year.
And I see included in your information was an email from the superintendent as of recently as January 7th, 2014.
Right.
So,
But as I said, she just emailed me because I sent her that packet and, you know, said that she misunderstood our intentions and would like to meet. So maybe just got the ball rolling.
So, you know, I think, I don't know, my personal feeling is perhaps let the cable committee and communication with the superintendent, perhaps maybe the school committee or subcommittee or however they choose to handle it, discuss this and see where they want to go. And perhaps the board could invite you back in a few months or something, just as, you know,
Sure.
an ongoing thing, of your thoughts and your plans that you know, ideas that you put out today. Like I said, the last thing that we need is another divisive issue, especially with the school
And
next
you know,
to it. It's just how things
Yeah.
come, and
I take a little exception to someone saying I don't support the school because I have 2 kids in the school system and they're model students and they're leaders. And I've volunteered my time for the school in the past, so. I've
Well-
asked for that kind of characterization to cease.
It's perhaps someone in a department vigorously, pushing for their department.
I
You certainly
understand
can't
that.
fault them,
Mhm.
but sometimes, as my colleague, Mr. Robinson has stated on several occasions, sometimes someone's passion for something overrides the cool collective logic that is more often than not required. Supporting a lawyer, I just but and perhaps that is it. He has requested, and certainly if he wishes to come before the board, he's certainly be put on the agenda. Yes,
You
Pete?
know, you've been spreading your mouth off here for 20 minutes about that machine. She's got $180,000 in the E&D fund. Why the hell don't she use her own money to do that? You're playing right in her pocket, you are. She's got $180,000 to do that. Why doesn't she upgrade that stuff on her own? That's what that money is for, E&D. That's what it's for.
Thank you. Yes.
I would just like to see the process followed, and I don't believe anyone, an individual, should do an end run around the cable commission to go to the Board of Selectmen to get what they want.
She's got
And
money to
that's
do it
why,
her own stuff.
well, that's their issue, and that's something that they have to decide. But we have a cable commission, and the reason why we have any money at all is because of the cable commission. And they're the ones that are in charge of this budget. So if they ask for somebody to fill out a survey to justify what their programming needs are and their equipment needs to meet that program, I don't think that's unreasonable. And I think that's what should be
I'm
done.
not saying he. I say the school. The school's got $180,000 in their fund. Use that. That's what their money is for.
Right.
Why keep giving them more for nothing?
They're not gonna be.
All right, Ken.
I'll say it for the third time.
Excuse me?
I'll say it for the third time. The school has not asked for this money. Mrs. Miller, perhaps the reason she didn't return the survey is because they don't want the assistance. They would rather not be involved in this kind of dispute anymore. She did not ask for this money. She's ignored requests to validate needing the money. She doesn't want it. At least at this point, they're just now starting to work on things. Like I said twice, this is one teacher who has come forward overzealously and I believe inappropriately to try to help their department. But it says right in the letter that the school committee has told them no to funding this because apparently it's not a priority. So if the school isn't asking for the money.
Well,
Is there anything else I can help you with?
um,
We have to tape these
Yeah.
mic wires down better, I gotta tell you that.
We need
I'll
gaffing
take on
tape.
making it look
Gaffing
neat.
tape.
Yeah.
we'll try to attend to that as
Well, we got that big budget for the gaffing tape.
expeditiously as possible.